Welcome to Night Shadows. I'm Stewart Best, where the paranormal is normal, where that which you thought you knew, you didn't, and where the future can be known if you know exactly where to look. Well, good evening, everyone. Thanks for tuning in and listening. And to the Matrix News, we have Larry on with us. Hi, Larry. How you doing?
Oh, trying to stay cool. It's really been hot here. Really, really hot.
Yeah, there are warnings out. I spoke to didn't speak to her, but I got an email from my daughter down in Alabama, and she was saying it's terrible hot down there, and you almost have to stay inside to survive it. It's really bad. Before we get rolling, folks, I just wanted to jump into this. There's a move now for rapid gun control, and it's not a good move, but it is part of the UN operations that are going on behind the scenes. There are agendas that they have, 2130/50 and all that, where they want to take over total control. But I wanted to read, once again, the Second Amendment, which was actually adopted way back on December 15th of 1791. And this is what it says: well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. Underline free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms. Now that means open carry. That's what it means. Bear. You have the right to bear them. Shall not be infringed. Now, of course, under the guise of precedent, under the guise of reasonableness, and under the guise of many other little arguments, the Supreme Court and our court systems and our government has regularly infringed upon the right of the people to keep and bear their arms. In fact, in most states now, you have to go get a license or you can't bear, or you have to get a right to carry license. Well, that's an infringement. Doesn't say anywhere in the Constitution here, in the Bill of Rights, it says you have the right to keep and bear arms. Doesn't say anything about you have to go get a license to do it. It says you have that right. And, of course, the people don't stand up and fight for their rights, so one by one, all these rights get eliminated, and usually on the basis of, well, you have to be reasonable. There's no reason for private citizens to own machine guns. Therefore, it's outlawed. But that's not what it says. Necessary to the security of a free state. Who is your worst enemy? If you go back into history, you'll find out that people's own governments are their worst enemy. It is the governments of the world that kill millions upon millions, more than all the wars between nations and states ever. The governments individually slaughter their own people. That's what happened in Russia. It happened in China. It's happened in Pol Pot, in Cambodia. It's happened all over the place. And now it's beginning to happen here. Now in Australia, New Zealand, and England, they took away the right to bear arms. Immediately the crime rate went way up. Of course it does. The very definition of a criminal is one who doesn't obey the laws. So all the laws they're passing are not for the criminal, and they know that. Our congressional representatives, the Supreme Court, all those people know that. These are all designed to get the arms out of the people, the private, well-meaning, law-abiding citizen. That's the target of all this. That's the communist target. Trump himself at the last rally said we're dealing with communists. He's telling you something. He's telling the American people something. We're in the middle of a communist takeover, a communist coup. Okay. So anyway, the Supreme Court obviously then does not know what the word infringe actually means, nor does Congress, the White House, or almost all states. In fact, I'd have to probably say all states, all of which regularly infringe the clearly stated rights to withstand the assaults of a standing army of the government. That is what this is all about. That is what the Second Amendment is for, to maintain a free state. Mao said it right in China. Power comes from the muzzle of a gun. If the people give up their arms, they have given up the power of the muzzle of the gun. And guess who's going to have the guns and who's going to have the power? Doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what's going on here. Okay, so they do this on the basis of reasonableness. Well, it's just not reasonable to have private citizens own machine guns or have a tank or a bazooka or a howitzer or stuff like that. It's not reasonable. And of course, from one perspective, they're right. So it sounds right. But now what's going on? There's a new law. It may or may not pass in Congress to actually take away all semi-automatic weapons, large ammo clips, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then they have of course, the red flag laws, which is nothing more than a backdoor approach. Now, I wanted to get into State Department document 7277 a little bit more, and the disarmament goal and the objectives is the title. It's from our own State Department. It's working in league with the United Nations. This is what it says. The overall goal of the United States, and the reason I'm bringing this up, I'm not hearing this from anybody out there who's arguing and warning about the takeover or the removal of gun rights. This is the foundation of it. The foundation of all of this is Psalm 2. Larry and I have warned about Psalm 2. How many years have we been warning about that, Larry? I can't even count them.
Well, many, many years, Stewart.
Yeah, and I just, Psalm 2 is the foundation of it. The United Nations is behind this whole thing. Okay, the overall goal of the United States is a free, secure, and peaceful world of independent states adhering to common standards of justice and international conduct and subjecting the use of force to the rule of law, a world which has achieved general and complete disarmament under effective international control. Well, that means United Nations control. And a world in which adjustment to change takes place in accordance with the principles of the United Nations. Well, what are the principles of the United Nations, folks? Communist principles. United Nations is a communist operation. Its whole charter is based upon the Soviet Union Communist Charter. That's what this is all about. In order to make possible the achievement of that goal, the program sets forth the following specific objectives towards which nations should direct their efforts. 1, the disbanding of all national armed forces and the prohibition of their reestablishment in any form whatsoever other than those required to preserve the peace. Establishment of a permanent international peace force within the United Nations. They're already in full operation. Peacekeepers, you find them in Israel, you find them in South Africa, you find them everywhere. And when they go there, rapes go up high, corruption is terrible. It's a terrible operation. Depending on the findings of expert commission, a halt in the production of chemical, biological, radiological weapons and reduction of existing stocks or their conversion to peaceful uses. Well, that's absolutely a good thing. Okay, here's what they declare their goal to be. The principles of the United Nations, a world, and this is a kind of a repeat, where there shall be a permanent state of general and complete disarmament under effective international control, where the resources of the nation shall be devoted to man's material, cultural, and spiritual advance. What are they talking about? The New World Order, the New World Religion, the New World Political System, the New World Economic Order. John tells you all about it. The disbanding of all national armed forces, the prohibition of their reestablishment, and then they go down to say that the manufacture of armament should be prohibited except for those of agreed types and quantities to be used by the United Nations Peace Force and those required to maintain internal order. All other armaments would be destroyed or converted to peaceful purposes. Okay, it shouldn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that's exactly what's going on, and Washington is totally and completely complicit. You're dealing with treason. I call it slow treason, infringement. The right of the people to bear or carry their arms shall not be infringed. Okay, here's a bill before Congress. To regulate assault weapons, to ensure that the right to keep and bear arms is not unlimited, and for other purposes. Well, let's go back. What do they mean by other purposes? I just read it to you. State Department document 7277. These people are nothing but the worst liars and traitors we've ever seen. Be it enacted by the state and House Representatives of the United States, Congress assembled. The act may be cited as Assault Weapons Ban of 2019. Now, I was listening to the radio this afternoon, Wisconsin radio. They have a bill that hopefully it won't pass, where they want all the everybody has a weapon must register it. Well, people who register their firearms are idiots. First comes registration, then comes confiscation, then comes the killing and the roundup, FEMA camps opening up, torture and murder of millions of Americans. This is the goal. This is what deep state wants. I don't think they got anything to worry about. I think deep state's going to accomplish their goal, according to biblical prophecies. However, there may be a few glitches along the way. So, anyway, any comments on that one first, Larry?
Well, I would just make a comment that, and it's kind of a question, you know, for all those people out there that think everything's just honky-dory. Now, that's an old term, but, you know, that kind of means everything's just all right, which we seem to have a whole lot of people in America thinks everything's okay. I'm going to ask them a question. Why is America being disarmed and certain other nations, but then on the other hand, why is China not have peacekeepers in China from the UN, and why are they not, you know, disarming? And the same thing with the Russians. Why are there no UN peacekeepers in Russia? They wouldn't dare, would they, Stewart? The UN wouldn't dare try to force anything in China or Russia. So what you've got, and this is just from my point of view, I guess I've read too many Tom Clancy novels, but it appears to me that the New World Order crowd, deep state, is trying to disarm America while they leave Russia and China, great enemies of America, ready to pounce on America, armed.
Yep, that's all part of the plan. They have to take down the United States because in order to bring in the New World Order, they have to gut the Constitution, and they have to bring us down and submerge us under the United Nations. That's what this is all about. It's all about taking America down, submerging us under the United Nations. Daniel the prophet talks about that very thing. The United Nations appears to be the fourth beast power. It's unlike anything we've ever seen. They will merge probably with the Sanhedrin and the Noride laws and all of that that's coming up. The 70 nations that are in Israel rising up for their false delusionary, how do I word this, false Messiah, a new fake golden age that Israel has to go under because they rejected Jesus Christ. They won't have anything to do with Jesus Christ. They hate Jesus Christ. Many of them, of course, according to the Bible, are blinded to who Messiah really was, so it's not their fault. Can't blame them for it. This is an act of God, and the reason he did it was to establish the church age. But the church age is rapidly closing now. And then the covenants that the Lord made with Israel long ago, the Abrahamic, the Palestinian, the Davidic covenants, he is going to go back to Israel, reestablish those covenants, and then deal with Israel for what they did. It's called the time of Jacob's trouble. And the time of Jacob's trouble is a severe testing because Jacob's name actually was Israel. So we could call it the time of Israel's trouble. Unfortunately for the world, when Israel gets into trouble, the whole world gets into trouble along with it. Because God really does have a whole big controversy with the people of the world. They're fallen. They will not admit they're fallen. They cannot understand. They don't want to understand. They're in full rebellion against the Scriptures. And it's just the way it is. Nothing anybody can do about it. But I wanted to get back to this thing on the red flag laws because these are coming rapidly. There's no evidence whatever that red flag laws reduce gun violence. Why? Because gun violence is done by criminals. The very definition of a criminal is one who doesn't obey the law. So if you're going to pass laws, how does that affect the criminal? I would ask everybody that question. How does it affect the criminal? Larry can tell you how it affects the criminal. It doesn't, right?
Oh, Stewart, people have no idea. Criminals could care less about the laws. They don't follow them anyway and wouldn't follow them. And what you wind up with is the only people that'll have guns will be criminals, of course. And most of your government at that point will be criminals too, so what's the difference? But what's interesting, they've had 2 or 3 experts today on Fox Business. Now, I don't think Fox is doing it, but Fox Business, they were questioning them about the red flag laws that they're coming up on, and most of them are saying that red flags are nothing but red herrings because it has nothing to do with stopping crime. It only has to do with total disarmament, and it will cover not only semi-automatic rifles, it'll cover semi-automatic pistols, so everybody might have a gun, but you're going to shoot one bullet.
Yeah, and you'll be standing against Chinese and Russian and Belgium and all kinds of troops. And if people don't believe that, they should go back when John Kennedy was president and he went to Geneva with a map of how they were going to have international forces come into America because they felt that the American military might object to shooting their own people. So then they concocted this idea, well, we should have Russians in here, we need Germans in here, we need Belgium troops in here, we need Chinese troops in here, blah, blah, blah. Well, guess what, folks? A lot of people don't realize they're already here. The State Department and our government has been involved in treason for a long, long time. They don't have to worry about the American people. They got to worry a whole lot about when they perish, when they die. Then they're going to face someone they gave the finger to all the time they were alive, the one they mocked at, laughed at, couldn't stand the name of, and they're going to face him face to face. And I know that for a fact because I've had that honor. Tell you what, Jesus Christ is one of few words, and the power he has is beyond any comprehension of anybody on planet Earth. I don't care about their weapons that they talk about, their little secret TR-3Bs, all this, nothing but a BB gun compared to the power of the Lord Jesus Christ. He can disarm these people in a split second, and they're stupid not to realize that. And like, I think it was Stan, wasn't it, that said that a lot of these, the technologies that they're developing really have one purpose: to try and defeat Jesus Christ at his second coming. I don't know about you, Larry, but I think that's rather foolish. What do you think about that one?
Well, I just have to tell them they don't know really who he is and what he's about. Their little futile attempt to stop him, good luck with that. Because I can tell you, you're not going to have any effect at all. And what's so ironic, Stewart, the Lord showed me one time that he literally has your next breath in his hand. The only reason you breathe your next breath is he allows it. And, it's very likely that his angels that came, there's many times his angels intervened in the history of man, and there would be thousands and thousands of the enemy didn't get their next breath. Nobody ever knew what killed them, but they were dead.
Yeah. Yep, this is what deep state, and I would have to say most people really do not realize, as Larry said, your next heartbeat, your next breath, everything you have, your meals, the dishes you put them on, the stove you cook on, the food you have, all comes at the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ. And without it, you got nothing. If he turned his face away, the whole thing would dissolve in a split second. Anyway, back to the new laws that are coming in with red flag laws. The second item in this article, excellent article, I don't have time to read it all. Congress lacks the authority to actually do this. The power to coin money, to regulate commerce, to declare war, to raise and maintain armed forces, and to establish a post office. Regulating firearms is actually not among the powers listed in the Constitution, although this has not always stopped lawmakers from regulating them, as we just talked about. Okay, then red flag laws violate all due process. Like Larry said, this is really gun confiscation. It's just disguised constitutional mandate that no one shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. That should bring to mind a comment that Donald Trump made some time ago when he said, well, let's just take the guns and we'll adjudicate it later. In other words, we'll just seize the arms and we'll go to court over it later on. That's not exactly the way this is supposed to work. But anyway, red flag laws actually could lead to more violence. And it does, because the officers, he talks about the two Maryland police officers shot and killed 61-year-old Gary Willis in his own house after waking him at 5:17 in the morning. Now, I don't know why they would do that in the first place, other than the fact that, hey, when they want to raid you, all you got to do is read your history books. They show up usually between 3 and 5 when most people are sound asleep. That's when they're apt to show up. You ought to read some of the stories that happened in the Soviet Union and Germany under Hitler, and how they raided and took away all the firearms. And anyway, he evidently, they'd red flagged him, and he resisted, so they killed him. That's what they're here for. John Moore made a comment to me, I'll never forget it. He said, they're not coming for your guns. They're coming to kill you. Because if you're dead, you can't use the guns. Not that they probably wouldn't take them after they've done you in. But anyway, it's not just the mentally ill and grave threats to who are flagged. In theory, red flag laws are supposed to target individuals who pose a threat to themselves or others. In practice, they can work quite differently. So it depends on who decides whether you're crazy or not crazy, or whether you might be dangerous. This is all pre-crime. Do you remember the Minority Report?
Yeah.
Larry, I'm sure, most of you probably out there listening have either seen it or you've heard about Minority Report. And it was really pre-crime. Pre-crime is always advanced when you're going into a police state. And the reason they do that is because they want to identify, i.e. through data collection, everything you do, everything you say, everything whatever is tracked, cataloged, and a dossier upon you is brought forth. When they take over, those dossiers are used to go out and arrest, detain, and probably torture, murder, and kill, because that's what FEMA camps really are. Don't forget what Hillary Clinton told you. Every American should go to a re-education camp, where she was talking about a FEMA camp, Camp Joy, where you get re-educated. And people laugh and say, well, it couldn't happen in America. You better read the Army manuals. It's already here. They've got manuals on how to do it. They're even hiring people. And the American people are sound asleep. Anyway, red flag laws are essentially a form of pre-crime, a theme explored in the 2002 Steven Spielberg movie Minority Report. And as I said, when you are going into a police state, you always move to pre-crime, and that's what that was all about. Okay, what else? What do you got, Larry, for us that you want to bring up?
Well, there was this weekend especially, we need to really, I don't know if you've only got 30 minutes or not. But,
no, I got an hour.
Oh, okay. I didn't know. I was just going to mention before the show's over to watch Portland this weekend, because they're now reporting that Antifa is going to show up dressed as Trump supporters. They're also going to be dressed as police, and now there's reports they're going to be in Army uniforms. So this is a bad deal. And what's interesting, Stewart, is the fact that you know well as I do that those locations do not have to give permits to both sides the very same day and allow them to confront each other. That is a setup. That's another setup is what that is. And but I was going to mention also, Stewart, see what you thought about it. You remember Liberty's Last Call by Stephen Kuntz. You know, he actually had an interview with Lou Dobbs on Fox Business when he put that book out, and then he went into obscurity because he had to go into hiding because it involved Barry Soetoro and et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, he just came out of hiding with a new book, not advertised, but he's got the new book out. It's called The Russia Account. Greg Jarrett wrote this. See if this sounds familiar. And if people that don't know, Greg Jarrett is a Fox News legal analyst and commentator and best-selling author of The Russia Hoax. He says about the book that Stephen just wrote, he says, a crooked Secretary of State plotting to be president, a dossier designed to smear her opponent, shady uranium sales to Russia, demands for impeachment, corrupt government officials, and a diabolical conspiracy to destroy America. And so anyway, that's kind of what it's about. And the book actually got in red on the front. It says, it starts with a murder. Will it end with a coup? ? There he is with another timely novel. Of course, it's fiction, right?
Yes.
Stewart?
It's all fiction. Couldn't possibly happen in the United States. They got to be pulling our leg. We're a free country, and we don't have corruption in our government. All we have is sane, very sane, and intelligent individuals running everything in our government. I tell you what. Oh, well, it is what the Lord Jesus Christ said it was. We are Babylon the Great. Oh, by the way, I don't know if you saw it or forwarded it, but somebody wrote, you have no scriptural verses to prove that America is Babylon or that America is even mentioned in Scripture. That's all it said. It was an email. Well, when I get an email like that, I just scratch my head because I can't fathom how anybody could make such a remark when they don't know how to connect the dots, read the phrases or descriptive phrases that the Lord uses to describe a mystery nation called Mystery Babylon. We're the only nation in the world that fulfills each and every parameter Jeremiah, Isaiah, Book of Revelation put out. And any other nation in the world that fulfills those parameters. And anyway, it's just too bad that people take that stance. I remember I had lunch with a pastor one time, and we were talking about Bible prophecy. And I had a radio program back in those days called The Return of the Shepherd. And it was on Sunday morning. And at first it was an hour long. Then I extended it to 2 hours long, and I invited any pastor within the range of the radio station to come on, and he could blab whatever he wanted to blab. Well, anyway, I did a series on America being Babylon. So at this lunch, when I'm eating with this guy, he says, well, I don't know anything about the Babylonian doctrines, but I know one thing. America is not Babylon. And I'm scratching my head and I'm saying, what kind of logic and reason am I listening to? You don't know anything about it, but you know America's not it. How do you know that? It's the same kind of mindset, I guess, Larry. I don't know what's going on with people's brains nowadays. It's like they can no longer connect the dots. They no longer can use logic. God is the author, by the way, of logic. He's the author of all mathematics, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know. Anyway, I want to go back to this Barry Rothman's Bible codes. He's got several of them here. Do you have them in front of you, Larry?
Not all of them. The only one I grabbed up, I thought we was only doing 30 minutes, so I grabbed up the one on the portrait of Clinton in Monica's dress at the Epstein home.
Yeah, let's get into that one. That's kind of cool.
It's pretty interesting. I actually smirked when I read it. And leave it to Barry Rothman. He looks in corners where nobody else would dare, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
Anyway, August 16th, today, he actually did a new Torah code that looked into the portrait of Clinton. And if people haven't seen it, you can find it on Drudge. You can find it on Standeo.com. I mean, it's all over the Internet. When they searched Epstein's home, they found a portrait of Clinton wearing a blue dress, if you will. And it's very interesting. It's actually a painting. And the Torah is very accurate in describing what it is. He searched for the word portrait, but here's what he found in the matrix that he ran. Number 1, Epstein. Number 2, Clinton. Number 3, painting. Number 4, prison. Number 5, murdered. Number 6, dress. Now, we don't know how to connect. Those are some dots we really don't know how to connect exactly perfectly. But just looking at face value, I would say that apparently Epstein had a painting of Clinton wearing a dress, and since Epstein was in prison and got murdered or whatever, they found it, and it's all over the internet. What do you think?
When I saw the picture, I mean, it's totally perverse, but it's very, very accurate as to what's happened in the United States. I mean, we're down the tubes now. We've gone down the rabbit hole. I call it the serpent hole, because that's where we're at.
Yeah, and Stewart, I was just going to mention, because you said we went down a rabbit hole, and you were talking about Babylon. I don't know if you saw it. I think I posted it. I know I sent you a copy of it. I think I did. There's a new expose that come out from a whistleblower with Google that has come out now, and Forbidden TV put out a post on it. Very, very interesting in what this whistleblower says, but they titled it The Tower of Google, which basically they're mimicking the Tower of Babel. I mean, how many, what's interesting, and I know somebody said there's not one thing in the Bible about America and Babylon. Well, Richard Coombs wrote an incredible book called America Babylon. Everybody hated it. He finally passed away without any recognition at all. Of course, you and I knew about him, Stewart, in his book, and you kind of mimicked the book on some of the stuff you've put out, and, of course, you've been hammered. And what's interesting, you mentioned people just don't connect the dots. People that don't really study the Bible, they don't think there's any dots in the Bible, Stewart, so they're totally incapable of connecting any of them. They don't even know where they're at or what. Maybe they've never seen a dot, Stewart.
Something like that. I mean, they forgot what the Lord said, line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little. You put the puzzle together, and evidently they don't want that. But as far as that goes, Google's Tower of Babel, folks, back long ago, Nimrod established a great nation. It was called Babylon. He established a great city by the river Euphrates. It was the great city Babylon. In that area of the great city was a tower, the Tower of Babel. Jesus said that as it was, so in the days of Noah, which is when all that took place, so shall it be again. Okay, so let's transpose it over. What do we have? A great nation called the United States. Within the United States, we have a great city called New York City. It's the center of all world trade. What were the World Trade Towers telling you? What's the United Nations telling you? Within the great city, we have a tower that the Hopi called the Tower of Micah. It's the modern Tower of Babel. It's right in front of people. I don't understand why they can't put it all together. Now, the second matrix I have in front of me, so I'll just go through the words. We did a little bit of it on the other program. It says Epstein, Clinton, girl, trafficking, orgy, man who lies within, with the woman, the island. Isn't that amazing with what they've already found?
Oh, it is.
I don't know if you.
And what?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to mention it's so incredible what they've already found. What's incredible is the fact that the Torah code embedded bukus of years ago when the Torah was written. It actually says the island and Epstein and all of this stuff, this sex stuff. You can't make this up, Stewart. It really is laying this stuff out, and we seem to be, from what I'm hearing, Stewart, the centerpiece or the tower of human trafficking also.
Yes, we are. Babylon the Great traffics in the souls of men and women and babies and kids, and we're going to burn, folks. And the people of America and all you guys listening out there, you're going to burn with it. If the Lord does not come back and get his people, we're going through a lot of this stuff. And for those who don't believe that the Bible is mathematics, they ought to go get the book called Theomatics, if you can still find it. The odds that they found in that book of of the numbers. For example, 888-777-666 and all these different numbers and how they would repeat themselves over and over. Could be a sentence, could be a paragraph, could be a page. And there would be multiples of all this. And they ran the odds. This is mathematics. The odds are simply quadrillions to 1. So nobody has an excuse, just like the Bible says. Nobody alive on this earth has any excuse for not knowing that that book is the truth. And even in the Old Testament, it says, only a fool says there is no God. When you look around, you can find that there is a God. It's obvious. It's in front of everybody. Okay. Democrats threaten Supreme Court, reject Second Amendment, or face court packing. Isn't that a bit on the lawless side, Larry? What is going on here? Is this Nadler and that group?
You're talking about that judge slapping Nadler down about their impeachment deal?
Well, no, this is evidently the Democrats where they threatened the Supreme Court.
Yeah, that's nothing but, Stewart, that's nothing at all but intimidation. They're trying to intimidate the courts to lean against the guns. That's all that's about, because the gun issue coming up, and they don't want the Supreme Court to try to block any of it.
Yeah, they got to get the guns, folks. And people, if you give up your guns, you deserve what you're going to get. I'm not advocating people taking out to the streets. I don't think you should do that. I think then you're fighting God himself, but you do have the right to defend your family. And when they show up, doesn't matter whether it's the sheriff department or military or whoever it is, with a fake warrant, and you know it's a fake, and you know you haven't done anything wrong, then you're dealing with the New World Order, and you're dealing with illegal activity, and trying to reason your way out of it. But if you can't, I don't know. I guess you have to go with what the Holy Spirit tells you to do. Another headline here. Gunfire exchange along Kashmir line of control kills 5 Indians and 3 Pakistani troops. This thing with India, it almost sounds like this is going to go into almost full-scale war. What do you think, Larry, from everything I can find?
Well, they're still fighting along that Kashmir border, and India still controls the total Kashmir at the moment. They took it over. Pakistan has, since they cannot actually confront the Indian military and forces that India sent in there, they only have one option, and that's to go nuclear. And what's interesting is the fact that they've already tried to get with China to work with them and help them fight India, and India has threatened Pakistan and China with nukes, and now China is raising the issue in the UN to try to put an end to it and work out some kind of agreement. But this is a hotbed. It wouldn't take but this is kind of like the Middle East. It wouldn't take but one mistake.
Yep. Says here, India's Prime Minister said in a nationwide address on Thursday that the revocation of Kashmir's special status was necessary to protect vulnerable minorities from injustice and vowed to return the region to its past glory. Well, Pakistan's not going to go for that, right? Because both India and Pakistan want those.
What that past glory is, that means Kashmir becomes India.
Yes, exactly. And how Pakistan's not going to put up with that. Little bit of paranormal, perhaps. Strange jet-like sky sounds, but there's no airplanes. We're getting more and more reports of those strange, deep scraping sounds, too, from all over the planet. And I firmly believe it's tectonic plates very deep grinding, and it's being pushed up, and it sounds like it's coming from the sky, when in reality it's just bouncing off the sky, and we hear it. Anyway, here's another one. They have found 8 more new and repeating fast radio bursts coming from outer space. What are they? This almost reminds me, Larry, of we're being prepared in some way for the arrival. All of a sudden now they're getting what appear to be possibly intelligent signals. What do you think? I mean, it seems like we're just being prepared very slowly.
Yeah, that's that's what a lot of people that seem to be in the know are calling soft disclosure, if you will.
Mhm. Yeah, and let's see. I've got to find this if I can. Oh, here it is. UFO sightings. Glowing fireball shoots out mysterious orb above the Egyptian pyramid. There is no doubt that the object in the footage is extraterrestrial, but opinions differ over whether it is a natural phenomenon or the product of intelligent life. Footage of a purported UFO sighting filmed above the pyramids in Egypt has prompted outlandish claims that the real pyramid builders have returned to see their creation. Well, that's not so outlandish as it might sound, because have you done any research on that? But in the book of Enoch, it more or less says that Enoch built those, or at least built one of them, if not 2 of them.
Yeah, it certainly wasn't the Egyptians.
Yeah, that's for sure. Anyway, a glowing white fireball seen streaking across the sky over the Egyptian pyramids when suddenly a white orb seems to shoot off and travel in the opposite direction from the space rock. The video was filmed by a tourist who uploaded it to the Chinese YouTube channel Bizarre World. Actually did it back in June. So they think maybe it was a fragment of a meteor, or maybe it was a plasma event. Anyway, we don't really know, and I suppose people can debate all that, but it just seems to me that the UFO reports are increasing by leaps and bounds all over the world, and that means that Israel is about to go into trouble, because we always have a huge UFO flap when Israel is about to undergo some problems. You had your radio go off on missile, but that was a false report, I take it, this afternoon?
No, it wasn't a false one. The Palestinians only fired one, and it was brought down by Iron Dome, and so it was a missile attack, but it was just one. It was more or less to get their attention. With our 2 congresswomen, and some people say Muslim congresswomen, that tried to go to Israel and got denied entry. So everybody's outraged. Even the Palestinians are outraged, and it's so humorous, Stewart. People here we are in America, and I listen to some of the outrage on the news today, and they just can't believe that Netanyahu and the government of Israel is denying these 2 Muslim women that hate Israel and want them to cease to exist, won't allow them to come in and spread this garbage within Israel itself. And I'm thinking, well, maybe Israel's smarter than America, because here in America, we allow everybody that hates America to spread seeds of destruction everywhere they go. And according, maybe Portland this weekend.
Yeah, Antifa, of course, folks, is a communist operation from start to finish, but if they dress up as police officers, if they dress up as U.S. military or police, then you got a real problem. It's kind of like the Chinese Liberation Army dressing up in Hong Kong police outfits and pretending they're Hong Kong people when they're not. And that has become abundantly clear now they have made a move on Hong Kong. They're going to take it over if they haven't already, which I believe they have. And then they're going to move on Taiwan. And what we're watching is the awakening of the kings of the East, Bible prophecy. And meanwhile, that's going on. There's another headline. According to the federal government, 19 million acres of farmland was not planted with crops this year. 19 million acres. Now there are more reports that even those farmers who did plant have had to plow much of their crops under. And I was looking at a picture, I think it was yesterday, where the fields were flooded. And the corn was already up. Now, in this particular area where we are, corn is absolutely beautiful. It's tall. It's got great ears. The soybeans are doing wonderful. However, the soybeans probably don't have anywhere to go because China takes 60% of our soybeans, and they canceled that in the battle with Trump. So, what do you think, Larry? I think we're in the middle of stealth famine. I just hope people wake up to that.
Even Holideo is posting daily. Matter of fact, they've got many, many reports of people that are saying everywhere around them there's no gardens, there's no food, the crops are not growing, or the crops have been destroyed. It's nationwide, basically, and people, and it's very likely and possible, and there are warnings that we may go into an early fall and winter. And if that happens, what's that going to do to the late crops? This is really serious, Stewart. And at the same time, more and more reports of stores having open shelf areas is popping up everywhere.
Yep. We're in a lot of trouble, folks. And you know what? You don't have to spend a lot of money. You really don't. I know they try to sell all these froze foods, quick frozen foods, whatever, flash frozen, whatever they call them. Or military ready-to-eat meals and all this. You don't need to buy any of that stuff. You can buy bulk grains. They're not that expensive. You can go to people like we have Aldi's up here or Walmart or any number of stores where they have canned goods on sale. And now's the time to go get them. You can get a can, get a case of beans, get a case of corn, get a case of carrots, get a case of peas, that sort of thing. May not be the best food in the world, but it will keep you from starving to death, and that's the main thing you want to be looking at. Not fun to starve. U.S. missile deployment to South Korea is a reckless act, according to the North Koreans. North Korea has warned against a potential move by the United States to deploy ground-launched intermediate-range missiles in South Korea, saying such a move would spark a new Cold War between the regional powers. So meanwhile, North Korea keeps firing missiles. They just fired another bunch, I guess. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, I did. That's very... Yeah, they fired more today, actually, and what they're firing, I saw a deal on Lou Dobbs. One of the generals was talking about they're firing a copy of Russia's Iskander missiles. And, Stewart, the reason this is dangerous is Iskander missiles are missiles like a cruise missile that can take out ships and carriers.
Yeah. Yep. I know. And I got a bad sinking feeling that God is not going to protect the United States. He's turned his back on us. And that means he's turned his back on our military. We're going to be in a lot of trouble. Here's another headline. Russia sends 2 nuclear-capable Tu-160 White Swan bombers close to the U.S. border. They're probing us now.
Yeah.
More or less routinely, isn't it?
Oh, this is continual all the time. And when you mentioned a minute ago you were concerned because God may have turned his back on us, Skywatch TV with Tom Horn just put out a warning, and he's warning the Christians is actually who he's warning, but, of course they're not listening. Anyway, here's the headline, Stewart, and a comment if you want to make one. It says, "What's coming in 2020?" ? He says, "Progressives killed God, family, and community in America. Next, they are coming for you."
Absolutely. That's the whole plan. And I guess it really doesn't matter who comes to get you. The fact that matters is they've come to get you. Anyway, here's something else. 9 prophetic judgments. I want to get this in before we close. This is from Louis Vogel Sharp. And I'm not telling people to believe any of this. I'm just telling you what she claims the Lord has told her. 1, Mississippi River expands and opens up, splits country in half. Now, a lot of people would laugh. Say, ha, ha, ha. Better not be laughing, folks. There is a geological rift. It's the largest rift on the planet that has not developed into an inland sea. Guess where it goes? From Lake Superior down through Minneapolis, St. Paul, and down through the heartland. So not anything to be laughing at. The Mojave Desert in California will flood. Then she says 3 words: Switzerland, CERN, earthquake. Now that takes us back. I think, well, you probably remember that, Larry, where there were prophecies that CERN was going to make some sort of a big mistake, and it would basically be destroyed. Remember that?
Yeah, I remember the prophecies, and at the same time, I think Nostradamus has got a quatrain involving that in that location there in Switzerland, and also there's been a number of others that have had experiences about a huge mistake with CERN that's going to devastate and kill a lot of people.
Well, they keep cranking up the power. I know that. They keep climbing the needle, and reminds me of Back to the Future, where Marty cranks up the volume so high that it blows him away practically when he strikes his guitar. This is kind of like what CERN's doing. They're just cranking up the volume. Anyway, the 3rd seal of Revelation, she claims, is for the whole world. Cherry blossoms in Japan will be destroyed. Cornfields eaten by grasshoppers or locusts in America. People burning the American flag. Hurricane, largest we've ever had to hit America. Martial law will be declared in certain cities after the economic crash. So there you go. Anything else before we shut down? Got about a minute and a half, I guess.
Well, what's interesting is there is a new sci-fi Christian video out of a trailer that they're beginning to use. It's called Quantum, and I sent you a copy of it, but
yes.
We're seeing more and more time travel books and movies and YouTubes coming out. There seems to be a push on time travel.
Yeah. Stan Dale even talked about, he won't talk about it much, but I think he observed some of that real experiments on time travel. I'll close down with this one. Police officers spray fake blood on themselves during the Philadelphia shooting. When some comments to the above video said it was doctored or faked, then another commentator pointed out the same scene in network TV video clip. Folks, a lot of this stuff, I can't say that it's all false flags, but I will say it all has an agenda, and that agenda is to get your guns. So anyway, thanks everyone for listening, and thank you a lot, Larry, for coming on. If anything really breaks, obviously we will be back on and notify you. I'm just about ready to put out a new book, and it's called Finding Home, and we'll have more information on it. Anyway, thanks a lot. Take care of yourselves. Heads up. Prepare if you haven't. Good night.